What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a Tuesday edition of Back Your Play. Rich Quinones here, Q, alongside with our NFL insider and correspondent, our good friend Lloyd Vance, kind enough to join us on a busy Tuesday. And obviously, the game, as they say, kind of takes a backseat to what transpired last night between Cincinnati and Buffalo with Bill safety Damar Hamlin basically having to be resuscitated. Great job by the crew on site, Lloyd, with the CPR, getting him to the hospital, and now he's in critical condition. Look, I always appreciate you coming on. We've been doing this for a long, long time. You've covered the sport. You played the sport. I said earlier when I went live on the channel, I can't ever recall watching as just a fan, a situation like that unfolded last night where you're kind of shook, man. It's a scary thing to watch because here's this kid. He's essentially they're bringing him back to life, fighting for his life. You watch that unfold. You've been around the sport for 20, 25 plus years, 30 years. You know it like the back of your hand. What was your initial reaction?
Yeah, Q. It was a scary thing. And, the only thing I could equate to was I watched Hank Gathers live, back in the loyal Marymount days. And we all remember, you're a boxing guy too, Ray Boom Boom Mancini and Dooku Kim, it's just scary. And it brings the reality that, these guys are human. We
Yes.
all want to say they're gladiators. And they're out there, playing a game and playing it hard. And everybody's talking about gambling and fantasy football, whatever you have. But these are men underneath these helmets.
Yep.
And I said to my sons, we're watching it live. I said, they can't go back and play this game,
No.
And thankfully, I think the NFLPA, the league offices, everybody got involved. I think really Sean McDermott may have started it, that this is more important than the game, and Hamlin, a guy who's very well liked by his teammates. You could see everybody visibly shook. The commentators visibly shook, and ESPN as well. So, you pray for the best for this young man, and hopefully it will take a turn for the better. And I'm hearing that it may be, but right now you have to keep praying for this young man.
Yeah. So, pardon me, a couple things. I remember when Dennis Byrd got paralyzed. That was an NBC game. I believe it was a late window against Kansas City, which was a fluke freak play. Last night, I'm hearing people, I don't even get into some of the stuff that I saw on social media, people throwing COVID in the vaccine. I don't need that crap today. But I don't think, Higgins, to me, you lower your shoulder, man. I don't think there's no malicious intent, right? Is what I'm trying to. It was a freak play, solar plex, boom, gets up, looks like he got shot, fell back down. You go in the cardiac arrest, man. You do not mess with that. The one thing that stood out was the NFL. We always talk about billions and billions of dollars, but they do hire the best of the best when it comes to this, right? With the teams and the EMT and getting on the field and the doctors and the medical staff, saving this kid's life. Emotions run high, right? When you watch something like that, and you're like, what is taking so long to postpone the game and this? And I honestly believe if they decided to play that game after this kid was driven off in the ambulance to the hospital, this is me now. I honestly believe that the Bills and Cincinnati would have walked off the field and said, we're just, you explain to me, how can I sit there and say, hey, Lloyd, get your guys to go in 5 minutes, get your emotions in check after watching someone be administered CPR, your brother, your friend, your teammate, your guy, right, in the foxhole in the trenches, and to say, gather your thoughts and then get back out there and run 100 miles per hour and have focus. How's that even possible?
Yeah, it's not. And the modern NFL athlete, these guys have a lot more say than back in the day. And they immediately, you could tell that they weren't going back out there. And it's good they took them in the locker rooms. They said, 5 minutes and all that. And it's just no way. And they took it upon themselves to say, we're not playing this thing. And I remember, the Dennis Bird situation and the Utley situation for the Detroit Lions and Ryan Shazier, another one that happened right there in Cincinnati and when he was Pittsburgh Steelers. It's just very hard for these guys to come back and focus and you can't blame them. They're human beings. They see this and then they wonder, could this happen to me? And it's just good that they postpone it. Obviously, the NFL will figure everything out like they always do in terms of, when they're going to be able to play the game and everything. But I think first and foremost, they want to see if Hamlin's able to come around on this. I hear he's in critical condition right now, but kind of trending in the right direction.
So a couple of things with that. They did the right thing by postponing the game, right? And they're not going to reschedule this week. And I know it's going to be a logistic nightmare because of the playoff implications. Put that aside for a moment. I just don't understand why Goodell couldn't have gotten on the phone and just said, we're not going to play this game anymore. And I know people are like, come on, because when I went live, I said at the end of the day, they did get it right. And maybe I'm nitpicking, but you have an opportunity. They did the right thing ultimately, but don't fumble it. And then I'm hearing, from Troy Vincent coming out, NFLPA, talking about the 5 minutes and saying it was more of Sean McDermott, it was more of the players. I mean, you are making, what does he make a year? What does Roger Goodell make? 50, 60, whatever the number is, $1 million a year, right? Get on the phone, league offices in New York, and just relay the message, convey the message. No, because the one thing that bothered me, and again, I'm probably nitpicking, but I'm thinking it from a broadcasting standpoint, is I understood they had to keep cutting away. I get it. You can only say so much instead of having a wide shot right on the field with the ambulance. I totally get that. But then kind of speculate, well, let's see if the kid's okay. And then we'll make the decision if we're going to play the game. Kind of left a poor taste in my mouth. So do you think that the league should have stepped in earlier? It wouldn't have made a difference because, like I said, they did the right thing. But it just once again shows, see, we can squeeze this sucker in because of money. Come on, that's what it is.
Yeah, it's a bad look for the league. And immediately, they should have stepped in. Yes, they did the right thing, but I think they were a little slow in doing it. Obviously, they're talking to their partners at ESPN, ABC, trying to figure out what to do, the logistics there. Yeah. But they have to right away say, you know what, this is beyond the game. And switch to some other programming, you know what I mean? Because they're not going to play this game. And it's good they did step away finally, but it wasn't a good look at first when they're like, all right, he's leaving the field. And, there's no thumbs up situation. I know a lot of times we see guys get carted off, like Tua when he had his bad concussion and he gives a thumbs up and everybody's like, okay, we can resume playing. But that was not even close to being the situation here. They had to rush him to the hospital, continue working on him there. And luckily they were helped kind of get him to critical condition that he's in now, but it was just too serious of a situation not to cancel the game right away, get everybody off the field, tell everybody the game's over. And luckily the NFL, did the right thing. I'm sure the NFLPA was on the phone with them right away saying, look, our guys don't want to go out there. And that was a big factor in this situation. So, you hope for the best, but it was not a good look when they were like, all right, 5 minutes and let's get back to action here.
Yeah, and I've had people on Facebook say, well, look what happened in 71. Listen, man, I get it. I think it was a tight end for the Lions. He had a heart attack. I think there was like a minute something left in the game, and they completed the game. They took him away in the ambulance. Like, what are you doing? Like, that's not even, that's beyond apples and oranges. You're talking about early on in the game, the kid, and it was so different back then, right? It's mouth to mouth, so to speak. And now you're just kind of bringing them back to life. I don't know, man.
Yeah, and it's 50 years ago. They did not have the technology or
that's what I'm saying.
Understand, the gravity of the situation, and there weren't as many eyes on it as last night. Think about it. It's the only game being played. The whole country's watching, and they have to do the right thing right away and care about player safety that they're always preaching, and take care of the player and also in the game, which they did. But you would like to see it done sooner.
Yeah, and like I said, there's always the contrarian view, so to speak. What about? I thought ESPN did a nice job under those types of circumstances, because what more can you do, right? You're going to cut away. You're going to go back in the studio. You want to get a player's perspective in Booger, and listen, I might not be the biggest fan of some of these guys, but what more can you say, right? You had to keep it short and simple. You don't want to speculate. You've got to just throw out the facts, which were very limited. And ultimately, you're not going to cut away. And I'm going to tell you why you're not going to cut away, because, and I had this conversation with my buddies this morning, you cut away, you treat it like a rain delay. Okay. Just bear with me for a second. You throw something up there. What do you lose? You lose eyeballs. And that's the reality, right? It's horrible to say, but working in this industry, that's where we're at. It's the train wreck. Let me slow down and see what's going on. So that's why they kept cutting away, going to commercial, coming back. I thought Van Pelt was excellent. I thought Lisa Salter showed a ton of composure with compassion and humility and emotion, which was good. And then Ryan Clark, who I'm not the biggest fan of because of some of his takes and his opinion, he nailed it, man. These guys nailed it. And ultimately, we cheer for these guys. We get on them. We criticize them. We root for them. But it is a violent sport, right? And they're entertaining us. So, I mean, that's kind of like my little soapbox on that. I don't know where you stood with that, but, I watched that kind of closely, that kind of stuff, because
they were thrown in this situation just like everybody else. And they did handle it very well. Most of them, they're true professionals. And you could see McFarland was visibly shaken, situations, as a former player, I'm sure he thought, wow, that could be me. That could be one of my teammates. That could be, someone I've known for many years out there. And luckily they did the right thing and they kept going. Obviously they stuck with the story as long as they could and tried to get the information to everybody. That's what they wanted to, cutting commercials. That's good in terms of, it's a product and they have TV time to fill, but it was a tough watch and thankfully they got into the hospital and the league is going to try to spin it their way and everything. And hopefully Hamlin's going to be okay and everybody's hoping for the best for him.
And that's it. The kid's got to fight. He's got to be a fighter. He's minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day. And that's it. All right. Logistically, what does the league do with this now? The game goes on. This is what we talk about, right? I just don't know. So I was thinking about this. If you move back the playoffs 1 week, get rid of 1 week before the Super Bowl. Remember years ago, you used to have that bye, so to speak. You get both Buffalo and Seattle a tie, no game, which people believe might be the practical decision. It doesn't affect who makes the playoffs directly, but it does affect seeding, so to speak.
Yeah, it does. It does.
I mean, what do you do? Do you treat it like a third? Yeah.
It's a logistics thing. And as you talk about, Goodell, he makes $50 million and Andy Katz, who's the guy that's the schedule maker. These guys are all on Park Avenue and they're in a room somewhere trying to figure out how to sort this thing out. I think they will decide to somehow play this game, and get it on the books and then go from there. But I was just looking at the lines before we came on. What do they do with Baltimore, Cincinnati? That's supposed to be next week, and New England, Buffalo. These are games as well. So they'll figure it out. Maybe they'll play. Give them some extra time to kind of figure out, can they move on? Can they move forward after this? And maybe they will get the players that time off that they need. And you're right that they're having that bye week. Maybe they do get rid of that bye week before the Super Bowl and they kind of shift everything from there. But, it's a crazy situation. But, first and foremost, you hope that Hamlin's what was
no
going
doubt. No doubt. So as it stands right now, Kansas City's the 1 seed, 13-3. Buffalo's 12-3. Cincinnati's 11-4. Hence, that's why the game last night, Cincinnati wins the game. All of a sudden, they have the tiebreaker. You got Jacksonville, you got the Chargers, you got Baltimore. Those are the 6 locked in. Pats, Miami, Pittsburgh, and Tomlin, go figure. They're trying to sneak in last game of the season. NFC-wise, the Eagles, San Francisco, Minnesota, Tampa Bay, Dallas, the Giants, and then you got Seattle, Detroit, Green Bay. Green Bay, if they beat Detroit, they're in, winning in. So let's start with the NFC and the NFC East, because it was right there for the Philadelphia Eagles, right? I mean, I don't know if you want to call it just arrogance or overconfidence, but they haven't looked well the last couple of weeks. I understand there's no Jalen Hurts. I understand there's no Johnson, but that was a pathetic performance on Sunday against a Saint team that, I mean, look, man, they had no business. They're not on the same level as the Philadelphia Eagles. And you had the water pistol out there, converting some plays here and there. And Andy Dalton, and the Eagles offense was absolutely stymied. I think it shows the value of Jalen Hurts, but I don't know. Is this an overconfident bunch? Is this a bunch where injuries are starting to come at the worst time? No Jalen Hurts, but they put up 10 points and their defense gives up 40 against Dallas. And then they turn around and the offense scores 10 against a bad Saint team, where now they have to go out and beat the Giants in order to secure home field advantage throughout the playoffs.
Yeah, Q. And a lot of people are saying, was it Gardner Minshew? Was it a defense? To me, it's a coaching staff. And, whether it was Sirianni, whether it was Gannon, whether it's Shane Steichen, who was the offense coordinator, they did a poor job preparing for this game. They just figured, all right, we did a great effort against the Dallas team that's playoff worthy, but we have a Saints team kind of limping in here, finishing out the string. And, we come out with the same old game plan, and Gardner Minshew is ready to roll. We're going to roll. We're going to beat the Saints up and down the field. Well, the Saints came to play. And as I said earlier, I attended this game. So I was there. I watched the whole thing. And the interesting thing was, Q, that the Eagles only ran the football twice in the whole first half of the game. Why not take some of the pressure off Minshew? Minshew is a good backup, but that's the key word there. He's a backup. He's a guy that's, he's not Jalen Hurts. You can't put it on him to put the ball in the air so many times. He threw it for 32 times, but, it was, excuse me, it was a situation where he couldn't get the ball off. The offensive line was a total disarray. They had a ton of false starts. He was sacked often, and the whole game plan was in awry. And the Eagles, they lost a good chance to win the division.
Oh, yeah.
Secure their seed, and then not have to worry about this week. Obviously, as you were talking about, the Giants probably are not going to put their best effort forward in this game because they already got everything locked up in week 17 and week 18's games kind of unconsequential. But the Eagles have to give a better effort. Everybody talk about, were they the best team in the league? They sure didn't look like it last Sunday against Saints.
Oh, no, it's going to be a massive choke job if they get bounced. I mean, and think about this. If they don't get home field, they don't win their division. They got to play in the wild card game.
Wow, what a difference that would make. And they had only one loss. They're 13-1. Everybody's talking about the road to Super Bowls paved in gold and everything. And it just shows you the value of Hurts, as you're saying. That injury is huge. He's a guy that makes everything go. And we'll see from there. But it's not a good look for the Eagles. And right now, you got the Niners who are breathing right down their necks for that number one spot.
Yeah, no doubt. Listen, I thought that Giant game, I thought going in against the Colts, I was very paranoid and nervous. Aside from one play from Foles down the field on a busted play, knocked them out of the game. And they played a game that's very rare if you're a Giant fan over the last 10 plus years, where winning in, okay. I mean, think about this. The last time they did that at home was against Dallas, and they went on to win the Super Bowl in 2011, but they buried a bad team. And now they got a little momentum. They're feeling pretty good. I mean, it really is amazing what they did. They're locked in right now as it stands against Minnesota, a team that they lost to on a 61-yard field goal on Christmas. But I couldn't be more happier as a Giant fan, because I've seen horrible football for so long. And at this point, they're playing with house money, man. Honestly, I'll say it right now on the record. I don't care what happens in the playoffs. I would love for them to make some noise. But the bottom line is the much maligned quarterback has shown you he right now is a franchise quarterback. And you can actually argue, if you go down the line, say he's a top 10 to 11, 12 quarterback in the league, man. I mean, I without Daniel Jones, this team's not making the playoffs.
Yeah, and it shows you was shown the general manager there, and as well as Daboll, the new head coach. They have, they've given him confidence, and Daniel Jones is playing like that guy that they wanted so many years ago when they drafted him. He has the consistency. He's not making the mistakes, and he was almost my game ball winner. We'll get into that later on, but 19 to 24, 177 yards, 2 touchdowns passing, and then he was running that read option, 11 rushes, 91 yards. 2 touchdowns, and just softens everything up for Saquon. We've talked about the receiving core so beat up for them, but he's got James going. He gets 7 catches for 76 yards and a touchdown, and they just took control of this game. As you said, when you get a bad team like that, you got to take care of business. And the Colts are a very bad team. They just beat them up, and it became a laugher. And defensively, Thibodeau and you get Landon Collins with pick 6.
Yep.
The Giants are coming along. So I'm not saying they're going to be a Super Bowl contender or what, but they're going to be an interesting team to watch in the playoffs. So they're not going to be such an easy out.
No, I'll tell you this, especially they got to play Minnesota, because what a disgrace Minnesota is. I mean, friggin' Captain Kirk, what are you doing to me? I mean, I've advocated for you. I've backed you, as they say, back your play in the name of the show. I've gone to bat for this guy. And listen, you got an opportunity to just make it easier for yourself come playoff time. Again, with the seedings, home field right there, and you go out and you have that type of performance, and you let Aaron Rodgers all of a sudden look like Aaron Rodgers of 7-8 years ago. I mean, that's embarrassing if you're the Vikings, man. Like, they just have the makings of a soft team that, whether it's against the Giants or not, they look like they're going to be one and done.
They've won all those games we talked about, those one possession games. I think it's 11 or so, and they just keep living on the edge. But they didn't even get to that point in this game. The Packers just dominated them in every aspect of the game. Special teams, Nixon was running those kickoffs back pretty far. And then you had defensively, Jair Alexander shuts down Jefferson, holds him to only 1 catch. And then offensively, you talk about Aaron Rodgers. He's looking like happy Aaron Rodgers. You get the big smile on his face. Everybody, is saying kumbaya. And this Packers team is on a roll. And then if they win this week in week 18, they're winning, they're in. So, it was a great effort by them. And as you said, the Vikings, they just kind of laid down in this game. And I think a lot of it had to do with the offensive line. Brian O'Neill went out, one of their tackles. And Dalvin Cook, you cannot forget to talk about him. He played a terrible game. He just, had no explosiveness. I don't know if it's being outdoors or what it was, but their offense wasn't doing anything. And the Packers just, they controlled the game in every aspect, and especially running the football down their throat. So, very dangerous team, Packers.
Yeah, Tampa Bay gets the win, so they win the South. It's weird because I was wondering, all right, if the Panthers win, are they going to extend Wilkes? I mean, it's a great story. And think about this: they had the quarterback carousel. They traded Christian McCaffrey, but Tampa Bay wins it 30-24. Man, just when you think Brady's cooked, right? 432, 3 touchdowns, all to Mike Evans. We'll hear, we don't want to see Green Bay in the playoffs. We don't want to hear, we don't want to see Tampa Bay in the playoffs. I think it's more of a product of Carolina just being overwhelmed by the moment, and it's Brady. I don't think Tampa's world beaters, but as long as you got 12 back there, you got a puncher's chance.
Yeah, Q, and we talked about all along, the AFC's head and shoulders above the NFC, and the NFC, so many bad teams. And now Tampa's trying to step up, as we talked about earlier, Green Bay as well. And the quarterback play of Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers, we talked about a couple of weeks ago, are these guys done? Well, maybe they're not so done just yet. And Brady was pinpoint, 34 45, 432 yards, no interceptions, 3 touchdowns. And, he was getting that ball deep down the field. And think about Q, this guy's 45 years old. And we talk about the last 45-year-old quarterback in the NFL, that was George Blandon, that way back in the day. And he was a backup and he was a kicker. So, Brady's out there. He could throw for 5,000 yards. And he's looking like he's still ready to play. So this team is dangerous. They're getting guys healthy. And then, we'll see what's going to become of this Tampa Bay team. Obviously, if the seeding holds today, they're going to play Dallas, and that would be a very interesting game And you know how Dallas likes to spit the bit in the playoffs, particularly Dak Prescott. He's come up short many times in the playoffs, and that would be a very interesting game if that holds.
Yeah, what's amazing too is the fact that Brady is one of the league leaders in passing yards, right, and attempts this year at his age. Remarkable stuff. Again, a couple minutes with Lloyd Vance, Tuesday edition of BYP. Rich Quinones here. Don't forget, check us out on the YouTube channel at Rich Q on Q. You guys have been fantastic with the likes and the comments and the shares, and we certainly appreciate it. So definitely tell your friends and subscribe as always. All right, so I'm trying to think when I look at the NFC, San Francisco. The quarterback is playing within himself. He's playing with confidence. This team is loaded, man. And it's amazing because we haven't even brought up Deebo Samuel, right? I mean, he's almost like an afterthought when you think about it, which is absurd to say, but they're freaking rolling, man. 9 in a row, 12-4. They might backdoor everyone and get the top seed in the NFC. And I would not want to go on the road, especially some of these East Coast teams, make that West Coast trip and play against that defense.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And that defense, led by Nick Bosa, he's probably going to defensive player of the year. They're just getting pressure all over the place. Warner in the middle is a tackling machine, and their secondary is kind of no name, but these guys are really hitting hard. So, that defense is doing a great job controlling everything. It was surprising they let 34 points to the Raiders, but, they stay the course. The Niners win 37-34, and you got to start talking about this rookie Purdy, which is crazy. Q, I talked about earlier, no rookie quarterback has ever made the Super Bowl, but it's almost unthinkable that this kid can get it done. He's not making the killer mistakes that we see so often from young quarterbacks. He was 22 of 35, 284 yards. Another game with 2 touchdowns. He only had 1 interception. And you talk about adding Deebo Samuel to that mix, and I think their other running back, they just opened a window for him to come back from injury as well. So, they are a very dangerous team. And as long as he's protecting the football, the Eagles better not give them that opportunity to be a number 1 seed.
Yeah. And how about this? The kid's got 10 touchdowns to 4 picks in 8 games played. Garoppolo played 11 and had 16 touchdowns and 4 picks. They've had 1, 2, 3, 4. They've had 5 players this year attempt to pass. Now, obviously, McCaffrey and you have to throw Lance because he played 2 games, but I think also Josh Johnson maybe. My point is, you had Lance go down, Garoppolo steps in, Garoppolo goes down, Purdy steps in. I believe Brian Daboll is going to win Coach of the Year, but man, you really have to also give a ton of consideration to Shanahan, because you're not talking about overcoming 1 loss of a quarterback. You're talking about 2 quarterbacks going down and having to go to a kid that nobody's even heard of until this year.
Yeah, and Q, a lot of talking heads, they always talk about Shanahan is one of the best coaches in the league, and I kind of shake my head, what is he really proven? He doesn't have that ring to back it up, but, he is one of the best young minds in the NFL. He's just finding a way to get it done. And what I really like is he's empowered his staff around him, guys like D'Amico Ryans, their defense coordinator, to just kind of work their side of the ball and get it done and kind of be the figurehead. And you can see this team is clicking in all cylinders and they're gelling as a group. So you'd like to see that this time of year as you're moving into the playoffs, and they're going to be a very tough out. You saw what they did last year. They went to Dallas and won that game on the road. Then they go to Green Bay, win that game on the road, and they were really close to getting back to the Super Bowl again.
All right, let's take a look at some of these games, and then we'll do game balls and lackey for week 17. But I know we got a couple of minutes left. Let's move to week 18. So we kind of have the scheduling out, how it pans out. Kansas City against the Raiders, Titans and Jacksonville. That is pretty much that is for the division. Who would have thunk it, right? I mean, Jacksonville all of a sudden, boom, 8-8. The Titans going south, no pun intended, 7-9. Jacksonville's laying 6.5. And I mean, listen, the fact that the Titans, they announced, this kid Dobbs is going to play. This kid Dobbs is going to start. And I don't I'm trying to wrap my head around this. They're going to have to really play complimentary football, mistake free, get some picks, and Henry's he's going to have a monster game. I mean, man, can you imagine sticking this kid out there, a 6-year vet that's kind of floating around, go out and win this game and win us the division so we can get in the playoffs. And oh, by the way, they're going on the road.
Yeah, Josh Dobb, a guy followed University of Tennessee, and the Steelers drafted him. He's on their bench for a number of years. Kind of guy you see in a preseason, and he plays pretty well in like week 3 of the preseason, yep. But not much other than there. And this is a primetime game, so they moved to Saturday night. And,
yep.
It's going to be a walker in that defense for the Jacksonville Jaguars to shut down Henry, because it's going to be Henry out of the Wildcat and any other way they can get him the ball. So that they did not play Henry and a number of guys this week. Tennessee planning on this game. I expect a hard-hitting battle, but as you're saying, Dobbs and a nondescript kind of offense, yeah. There's just not much else there. They have Treylon Burks, who's a pretty good rookie there, but other than Henry, there's not just much else, and I just don't think them getting it done. And Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars are another ascending team. They're just stacking W's, and they look like they're on the right track. Let's not forget about Travis Etienne. He had one of the best weeks this week as well, just running up and down the field. And I think Jacksonville win this one. That over under 40, that's going to be interesting to see if that's in the play as well. But I think Jacksonville should win by a touchdown. So take Jacksonville laying those points.
Yeah, good point by Etienne. Got hurt early on last year, right? Missed the whole season. So it's nice to see him with that bounce back. I don't know. Do we go by the premise that, all right, the Ravens are going to play Cincinnati on Sunday? There's no line on that game. It's 10-6, 11-4. Obviously Cincinnati needs that game. I guess the same could be said with the Patriots and the Bills. I guess we'll kind of asterisk those games. Then you got the Jets and Miami. And the only reason I bring this up is because the Jets are going to need a quarterback going forward. Wilson's not the answer. Mike White's not the answer. And then you look at Miami. I mean, Miami's season, if you go back and you think about this, it was lost when Tua got banged up. They were 3-0, then they lost 3 straight, then they won 5 in a row, then they lost 5 in a row. I mean, this team was 7-3 at one point. I'm sorry, 8-3 at one point.
Yeah, one of my good buddies, he's down there in Miami, he's crowing, and he said, we beat Buffalo, and then, we're the team to beat in the AFC, so we're going to win this. And it just all fell apart for him. And I like to remind him early and often about that. And, it's a situation. I'm not sure if they win, are they in? I know it's kind of convoluted, but they still have something to play for, so Miami is going to go out there, giving an effort. But Teddy Bridgewater got hurt on that stiff arm. He hurt his hand, so he may not even play in this game. And I don't expect Tua out there the way they're talking about his concussion situation. So this is a Miami team. Unfortunately, they've fallen apart at the wrong time. And where do you go from here in terms of Tua? Do you move forward with him? Obviously, like you said, with the Jets, maybe Derek Carr may be their quarterback next year. We're going to have to monitor that situation. But you're right; they need to have a new quarterback as well. The Jets, they have a lot of picks, and they seem to be rebuilding that team, moving in the right direction. But Miami, it has been a disappointment down the stretch here, and Miami's laying 1 in this game, and I still think. I think they'll find a way to win it somehow. I think Miami will get off the schneid. They'll be at home, and if they have the chance to make the playoffs, even if it's limping in there, they'll kind of get it done. So it's going to be an interesting watch.
So you got Seattle beating the Rams. They're automatically the 7th seed. If Seattle lose, the winner of the Lions and the Packers is the 7th seed. Hence Green Bay winning in. So that's why it doesn't seem – I'm going to pull it up again. That's in the NFC. Obviously, the Eagles beat the Giants at the number 1 seed. Let me see if I can pull up these scenarios.
The thing is, New England is tied with Miami. They're both 8-8, and have they split? They split, I believe, this season. So, and then you have the Steelers 8-8 as well. They're still alive as well. How about that? So,
yeah. All right, here you go. So. All right. Philly right now is the 1 seed, San Fran the 2, Minnesota the 3, Tampa the 4, Dallas the 5, Giants 6, all clinched, right? So week 18 clinching scenarios. The Eagles will clinch the NFC East division title, okay, with a win or a Dallas loss. Beat the Giants, you get home field, and you win the division, okay. Clinch number 1, home field, Philly win, or Dallas loses in San Fran, okay? San Fran will clinch the number 1 seed, home field advantage, and the bye with a win and a Philly loss. So San Fran plays Arizona. So they should get the win because Arizona's mailed it in. The Cowboys clinched the NFC East with a win and a Philly loss. But how about this? The Dallas Cowboys, and they play Washington, who's mailed it in. The Dallas Cowboys can clinch the NFC home field advantage, clinch number 1 seed, if they win, and the Eagles and the 49ers lose. Now, that's going to be tough to do. Seattle,
you're talking about 2 14-point favorites losing there.
Exactly. Right, because we're going on the premise to resting players. Exactly. Seattle clinches a playoff berth with a win and a Green Bay loss. Green Bay wins, they're in, period. Detroit wins plus a Seattle loss, they get in. Green Bay controls their own destiny, right? Winning it. Okay. So that's on the NFC side. So let me pull up AFC right now. Patriots are 8-8, and the Dolphins are 8-8. But here's the problem right now. With the Dolphins, they need a lot of stuff to happen. We know the Jets are eliminated. The Steelers need a lot of stuff to happen as well. Here's your breakdown in the AFC real quick. Let's just go to the ones that you were just asking. It's pretty much locked in, right? Buffalo, Kansas City, Cincinnati, Baltimore, the Chargers, already earned. All right, Jacksonville, whoever wins that, they win a division. Jacksonville, the Titans.
Yeah,
So there's your other.
4.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So Miami, Jacksonville can also clinch a berth.
Yeah, they're 8-8 as well.
Yeah, Miami, the Patriots, and Steelers all lose. Yeah. Miami can clinch a playoff berth. My head's spinning. With either a win plus a Pats loss. The Patriots will qualify with the win, and this is where they need help. Miami, the Steelers, and the Titans all have to lose.
Oh, wow.
The Steelers clinch with a win and losses by Miami and New England. That's why I think out of all these teams, it's set up right now with the Pats, maybe kind of a backdoor. Listen, ultimately, the NFL got exactly what they wanted. They got meaningful football in a week 18 with playoffs on the line. Hence,
it's great because I remember so many years covering the Eagles where I'm at that last game, which was typically week 17, and we're watching a glorified preseason game. I mean, where everybody's resting and no one's playing, and
correct.
You have a bunch of guys called up from the practice squad just for that day out there, and it's going to be interesting to see that this week 18 how it plays out.
Hey, lastly, before I let you get out of here, and then we'll do game ball and lackey, do you think the Giants should rest the majority of the players?
Well, they seem to be locked in with that number 5 or 6.
They're locked in at 6. They're either going to play Minnesota or potentially San Francisco. Well, it looks like they're going to play Minnesota.
So, Q, with the amount of injuries that they've dealt with in terms of their defense and their receiving core, I think Daboll would be smart to kind of, just sit everybody. And luckily for the Eagles, they're probably going to backdoor and win that division.
Well, and that gets them home field.
And it will give them home field and number one seed. So, it's been a crazy season, and a crazy ending for the Eagles. But yeah, luckily, I think they're going to get a gift from the Giants.
All right. let me get a game ball and Lackey. And you know what? We might, maybe later on the week, we might hit a 15 or 20-minute one once we kind of get a little more clarity what's going to go on with the rest of these games. But who do you have for game ball?
The game ball, Q, I did a lot of great performances out there, but I have to go with Mike Evans. 10 receptions, 207 yards, 3 touchdowns, very long catches. I mean, he was just tremendous out there. Obviously, we talked about Brady earlier. He's a guy that we possibly could have gave it to as well. And so many great performances out there. But I really thought Mike Evans reestablished himself. And if you have him making big plays with Godwin and the rest of those guys, Tampa Bay is going to be very dangerous. I had to give my Lackey. I'm going to give it to Nick Sirianni. I just got to give it as a whole. I think he did not have the entire unit ready to play for the Philadelphia Eagles, a game that was a must win, and everybody thought it was going to be so easy against the Saints. I thought about giving it to Gardner Minshew, obviously, because he was a guy on the field being harassed, but I thought the game plan was terrible that the Philadelphia Eagles had, and he's the figurehead, so I'm going to give it to him to disseminate to his people.
All right. I would have gave it to Jeff Saturday in that debacle, but hey.
Yeah, he's done. They cannot even think about interviewing him for that job, let alone giving it to him.
No, he'll be on ESPN in another week. Trust me. He is Lloyd Vance, our NFL insider and correspondent, jumping on BYP for a couple moments. Great stuff, man. We got a lot in. We got a good show in today. We'll get that up and loaded and posted. And like I said, maybe schedule permitting, we'll squeeze in another 10 to 15 later on the week, get a little more clarity on what's going on. But always appreciate a couple moments, pal.
All right, sounds good. Thanks for having me on.
All right, you got it. There you have it. Our guy, Lloyd Vance, jumping on for a couple moments. He brought us some really interesting points. I mean, I still want to see how everything's going to shake out later on in the week. It's tough to really kind of talk lines because, if you're resting players, I mean, look, some of these lines are ridiculous. The Giants right now are 14-point dog. Vegas is telling you that they're going to rest some starters. But you never know, man. It's chess, not checkers. The head coach will keep it close to the vest, and we'll see how it plays out. But as always, appreciate you guys tuning in. Like I said, I don't ask for much. If you like the video, if you like the content, if you like the shows we're putting on, subscribe to the channel, share with your friends, tweet at me at Rich Q on Q. We got a bunch of more shows coming up this week. We're going to go live later on in the week as well. Don't forget 27 and Q with my guy, 2-time Super Bowl champ from the Giants, Brandon Jacobs, and our new show that dropped last week, Down the Boulevard, which is a hoop-centric show. So we're going to get into a lot of the NBA later on this week. The scoring is all over the place in the league if you watch what transpired over the last couple of days. So as always, appreciate you guys keeping it locked into BYP. We will most likely talk to you later on tonight. We'll see if we can get our guy Jovan Alfred on for a couple moments, talk a little Philly perspective. Check me out on Facebook, IG, Twitter at Rich Q on Q, and the YouTube channel Rich Q on Q. Have a good Sports Tuesday.